All right, today we're covering conditional statements and counter examples. A statement is a sentence that can be true or false. For example, tall clowns have big feet. It could be true or it could be false. A statement that can be written using the words if then, read as if P then Q, is a conditional statement. The hypothesis is the phrase following the word if. The conclusion is the phrase following the word then. In these next two problems, let's identify the hypothesis and conclusion of the following conditional statement. If you live in shirts, then you live in Texas. So let's start by underlining the hypothesis once and the conclusion twice. So remember, if it's the hypothesis, it follows the word if. And so in this case, here's my if, you live in shirts. The conclusion is following the word then. So here's the then. You live in Texas. So my hypothesis is you live in shirts. Conclusion, you live in Texas. So you just need to look out for those two words. Now, we can identify if this is true or false later. Problem number 2. If two angles add to 180 degrees, then they are supplementary. Okay, here's my if, here's my then. I'm going to underline the hypothesis once, the conclusion twice. So, two angles add to 180 degrees. They are supplementary. We're going to write the following statement in if-then form. So here's our statement. An obtuse angle has a measure greater than 90 degrees. So we've got to figure out where we're going to plug in the if and the then. So in our last two examples, the if came at the beginning. So if an angle, and I'm going to rearrange this just so it kind of flows easier, is obtuse. So an angle is obtuse. The then came in the middle. Then it has a measure greater than 90. All right, let's try this again. Remember, the if goes in the beginning. And let's see what we've got. Prime numbers only have two factors, one in itself. So we've got to rewrite something about prime numbers. So how about if a number is prime, then it will only have two factors, one in itself. That's a 1. Counterexample is how we prove something's wrong. It is a specific example. It is true for the hypothesis, but false for the conclusion. If an animal is a dog, then it's a Labrador. Here's our counterexample. Well, what about a poodle? So here's problem number 1. If an angle is acute, then it measures 35 degrees. Can you come up with a counterexample? So it's true for the hypothesis, but it's false for the conclusion. So what other kind of angles could we use that's acute? What about a 45-degree angle? or a 50-degree angle. Anything that's less than 90. Okay, problem number 2. If you are at school, then you are a teacher. So we need to be someone at school. Is everyone a teacher? How about students? Counselors? Are you getting the idea? Okay, so number 3. If there are 2 angles, so we're going to be true for 2 angles, they are complementary. So we want to be false for complementary. So complementary, those are kind of angles that add to get 90. So, and we just need to be true for the first statement. There are 2 angles. How about a 1 degree and a 2 degree? Do those add to 90? No. Any other, you could have a 135 degree and a 75 degree. Those don't add to 90. So there are lots of counterexamples for that one.